In a world where power rolls over the weak, we see a wounded man taking his last breaths. He can hardly stay awake and is panting with his gloomy eyes. Looks at his comrades who are in panic trying to run away, but to no avail. A man with white clothes unsheaths his sword and cuts through them with ease. As the killer approaches the wounded man, he remarks that he always wanted to achieve true strength and to never lose a fight no matter who he faced. The killer stops in front of the weak and wounded man looking down at him. The weak man thinks to himself that he stands no chance against such a mighty master. His opponent is none other than Gu Zhongmyung, elder of the strong Mount Hua sect. He looks into Gu Zhong's eyes with despair, remarking that he even joined the demonic academy to get stronger, and withstood many hardships for years. Despite all that, Gu Zhong is the one standing tall in the dark night while he is severely wounded and about to lose his life. He states that this is unfair, that he doesn't want to die, and starts blaming his inferior martial arts and circumstances. Suddenly, a blue screen appears in front of him. This phenomena makes the wounded soul think that now he is even hallucinating. The screen shows 3 options, which are to continue, load save point, or restart. The dying man just looks at the screen while the screen automatically chooses to restart, and he starts losing his consciousness. But even when he is facing, he kept repeating that he doesn't want to die here and expresses the desire to live on. A message pops up explaining that to this poor soul that he chose to restart, and after that, the screen interprets that. Now, you will be returning to the private meeting with the Lord of the Great Imperial Pavilion. The start of the chain of events. Suddenly, the wounded man wakes up with no injuries to be seen, in a mysterious place, and there he reveals his name, which is Seolhui, and that he was even willing to sacrifice his lifespan in order to get stronger, which is why he joined the demonic sect so he can practice its art. But the sect didn't teach him any useful martial art, only sent him on scouting missions and info gathering for the last few years, just like a pawn with little value. But now he is dead. He remarks that life is unfair. Moments later, Seolhui wakes up on a bed holding his head. After a second, the realization hits him, and he jumps up from his bed. Seolhui questions himself, that isn't this place the training camp? Bro gets confused and doesn't know what is going on. He remembers the way he and his comrades died, dogs worth death. Moments later, we see him dressed up and walking to somewhere. But on the way, Seolhui was doubting his dying experience as just a nightmare. But short after, he denies its possibility as a dream, because it was so real, and he puts all the blame on Gui-sama, Lord of the Great Imperial Pavilion. The person who appointed Seolhui, the mission in which he and his companion got massacred. While he is lost in his thoughts, 2 figures appear behind him, and one of them states, "So this is where you have been." Seolhui looks behind him, and the bald one start walking towards Seolhui, clearly with no good intention. When he faces Seolhui, he start giving a deadly glare at Seolhui. Meanwhile, Seolhui informs us that this bald guy is Chiksan, a member of the Black Moon Company, which is directly under Gui-sama's control. But suddenly, he is met with a punch in the guts by Chiksan, throwing him on the ground. Chiksan mockingly apologizes, saying that his hand slipped. Then, he leans towards Seolhui and tells him that, "Are you still half asleep? Have you forgotten who you're talking to?" Then, we are introduced to the man accompanying Chiksan, Captain Jokmyong of the Black Moon Company. The punch clearly made Seolhui to remember things. He remarks that what the F is going on, the exact scenario already happened before. Then he guesses correctly what Chiksan's next words will be, which is just Chiksan saying, "Bro, you have skill issue. At least learn how to respect the strong." This revelation daunts Seolhui, not because he got bullied, but because the exact same thing already happened before. While Bro is in his thought, Jokmyong steps forward and approaches Seolhui, warning him that you got some nerves. To this, Seolhui responds with, "What brings you here, sir?" And Jokmyong states that, "Lord Gui-sama is looking for you. Go see him." Then Jokmyong turns around, but before leaving, remarks that you are very lucky. His comment makes Seolwi wonder what he means, but he just stands up cursing Chiksan, saying that he outranks him. But Chiksan is taking advantage of Jokyong's presence, so I can't do anything. Then he swears to take revenge on him. Suddenly, he notices numbers on top of their head and ponders what those numbers are. Moments later, Seolwi is walking and thinking. About his situation, he gets goosebumps all over his body because everything that took place happened exactly as he remembers. He thinks of the possibility that he dreamt the future. Once again, he denies the possibility, as he knows that his experience was too real to be just a dream. So he just goes to Lord Sama, as he was looking for him. Lord Sama tells him to come in, but before entering, Seolwi comes to the conclusion of the fact that he has returned in time before his death. Seolwi looks at Lord Sama while he is taking a sip of his drink and states that it's all your fault that I died. Then he respectfully asks Lord Sama for his request. Meanwhile, he remarks that exactly as he remembers Cho In Dang, the tumultuous Sky Pavilion is here too. We get informed that the headquarters of the demon cult is known as the Crimson Demon Palace and has 5 pavilions under its command. Each pavilion lord is a great martial art master. Gui Sama, lord of the Great Imperial Pavilion, is master of the Fire Mask Demon style. With little effort, he can melt someone's bone. Also, Lord Sama has anger issues. If you anger him, you are dead. Seolwi shows discomfort, and he don't trust Lord Sama, but he have no choice but to follow his order. Meanwhile, Lord Sama introduces Seolwi to Lord Dang. Lord Dang gives Seolwi a compliment, but glances at him with a bad look, scolding him for not bowing properly to his elderly. Seolwi, sweating, gets on his knees like a dog, asking for forgiveness. Lord Sama, seeing this, laughs and asks Lord Dang to don't tease him like that, and orders Seolwi to get up. Seolwi remarks in his mind that this bastard, Lord Sama, told me to just bow my head when you were in front of me. Now they're just playing with him. I wouldn't let that slide. Lord Sama then asks Seolwi that are you interested in becoming a secretary in the Heavenly Sun Archive? Then he points out that you seem eager to learn martial arts. So Lord Sama decided to do this for Seolwi. Meanwhile, in Seolwi's mind, he thinks that this is how he tricked him. And we are informed that the Heavenly Sun Archive is where they keep hundreds of thousand martial arts tomes. Then, Lord Sama reveals his real intention by saying, if you want the job, you first need to prove yourself. So I have a mission. These words make Seolwi get a flashback of the mission and how he was slaughtered. Seolwi clenches his hand into a fist and informs us that Lord Sama will tell him to gather information in Manhwa sect's territory, where he will be cut into shreds. So he decides to make an excuse to avoid the mission. Seolwi doesn't want to ruin his second chance at life given by God. Seolwi is surprised by the sudden appearance of the blue screen, and after a moment he realizes that the time has stopped and realized that he actually did die and returned back. While he is busy thinking, he suddenly sees a timer on the blue screen and realizes that he don't have much time, so he reads all the options on the screen. The options are to accept the mission, to reject and ask for another mission, and to offer your right arm. Obviously, Bro chooses the second one as he clicks the time starts, and without any control, Seolwi shouts that he would like another mission. Everyone in the room is confused, even Bro himself. Lord Sama stands up and shouts that he didn't even told the mission, and Seolwi have the nerve to ask for a different one, unleashing his fiery aura at the poor Seolwi, making him fall on the ground. Seolwi is shaking as F, realizing that this is the legendary Fire Mask Demon style. He remarks that it's so intense that he feels like Lord Sama is holding him by his throat. Seolwi says that this is bad. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Suddenly, Seolwi's body gets F. He shouts, enough! Lord Sama with wrath, and we see a blade literally 2 centimeters away from Seolwi's neck. The sword belongs to a henchman of Lord Sama, who could have ended the story in an instant. Not gonna lie. Smash. But everything that took place confuses Seolwi, who did not even see when she appeared in front of him. If Lord Sama hadn't stopped her, he would have looked like a donut. The baddie, obeying Lord Sama's order, restrains herself from taking our boy's life. Seolwi, holding his neck, introduces her to us. Her name is Hukbi, bodyguard to Lord Sama. Lord Sama sits back on his seat, with an angry gaze asks Seolwi for his reason to reject the mission without hearing it, and he threatens Seolwi that, according to his respawn, Lord Sama will decide whether to kill him or not. This scares the hell out of our Seolwi. To save his life, the poor soul gets on the ground and apologizes to Lord Sama, and starts to clarify his action. He didn't mean to sound picky. The reason is that he heard rumors about members of the Manhwa sect. They are gathering in the Hanam borderland. Seolwi wants to take advantage of Lord Sama's hatred toward Manhwa sect, so he cooks a plan and explained to Lord Sama that, as Lord himself before said, killing jerks from Hwa sect is a duty to demonic sect. Hearing these words, Lord Sama asks for Seolwi's point. Seolwi responds by saying that he wants to take seize of the opportunity. The Flying Hand Company is specially trained for info gathering and scouting, which Seolwi is part of. If the Lord permits him, he wants to know, when will Demon Cult's top fighters being deployed, he would gladly join them on their mission. Lord Sama starts thinking about Seolwi's proposition. On the other hand, hearing Seolwi's reasoning, Lord Dang lets out a chuckle, saying that Plum Spring Pavilion must have leaked some info, otherwise it would be impossible for a mere lieutenant to have heard rumors about the event. Lord Sama turns his face and looks at Seolwi. Considering everything Seolwi said, he remarks that the mission from before he was going to appoint Seolwi was the same as he just requested. So he gives our guy a mission where he would have to go and scout the area first and bring information about who will be gathered at Hamgok Pass and what the terrain is like to the deputy commander. Hearing this, Seolwi accepts the mission and start getting up from the doggy position, but on the back of his head, he is surprised that Lord Sama didn't kill him. While standing, Hukbi and Seolwi holds eye contact, but Seolwi just passes by her. Then we see a horrified face from Seolwi. He looks back one more time, and we see those same numbers he saw before. On top of Hukbi's head, we can read +4 lives. Later, we see Seolwi kneeled down, and he is washing his face while pondering about everything that he experienced today. The confused soul says, I can't believe what happened just moments ago, and yet I guess I have to. This is really happening. I don't get it though. What the heck is happening to me? I couldn't make heads or tails from what he said, so I just repeated everything Seolwi said, and also the reflection from the water shows that Seolwi also have something written on top of his head, but there isn't any number. It just shows that he is in his last chance, unlike others that we saw who had a number of lives. Seolwi also have 1 coin written. Then we see him taking a walk while he contemplates his situation, where no matter what he did, he couldn't change the fact that he have to go on a mission which will result in his death. Last time on Seolwi's mission, the deputy commander never showed up, and their escape route was blocked, which resulted in them being slaughtered like animals. All this leaves out a guy frustrated. He wants to run away to the Central Plains, but he knows that wouldn't work, due to the fact that he already studied the demonic martial arts. No matter what, there isn't a way for him to hide this dark and sinister energy. The trained members of the cult can easily sense the demonic energy that he exudes. Even from miles away, he wouldn't last long out there. He is left with no choice. Am I doomed to die? Thinks Seolwi. On his way, he meets Chiksan. I heard you got assigned to a pretty big mission, remarks Chiksan. He is sitting on a stone holding his sword. Then he says that you should have been more careful. When you were looking through Lord Sama's office, it's all your own fault. Then chuckles and apologies, acting like he was just thinking out loud. But now that Seolwi heard it, Chiksan can't do anything about it. I hate this bald chicken. Seolwi ignores everything that he just heard, just looks at the top of the bald head that is written +1 life. Then starts thinking about the position he is in, says he need to decide, takes a deep breath. Am I just gonna let myself get killed on this damn mission, making his mind to start walking toward Chiksan. Chiksan is at a daze about what Seolwi wants. "I just want to check something," remarks Seolwi. Chiksan again asks about his intentions, but he is scared like a chicken. Seolwi, with determined eyes, rushes toward Chiksan, intending to strike. Seeing this, Chiksan draws his sword and blocks the coming attack. Chiksan asks, "What are you doing?" while grinding his teeth. Seolwi stays silent and ferociously keep attacking. One of the attacks goes through and injures Chiksan's leg. Seolwi questions, "Why do you think I went through Lord Sama's office?" "It was because I thought I might find something in there. All I want is to get stronger." But regardless of who I ask, no one is giving any answer. While glaring furiously. Then he uses third basic technique of Black Demon swordsmanship, Chiksan blocks, and with anger questions Seolwi's action, and that does he think he can get away with this. Seolwi frowns. "I don't even care what will happen anymore," thinks to himself, and dashes into battle. While he is clashing with Chiksan, Seolwi contemplates that he have worked hard to get this far. He can't just let it end here. He wants to find a way to survive. He can't let himself to die again. Chiksan sees an opening and slashes, but Seolwi dodges and kicks him hard in the guts. This renders Chiksan's movement and Seolwi while looking at the text above Chiksan. "Things that I found a way to survive." Seolwi takes a stand, clearly wanting to end the fight. Both glancing into each other's eyes, Chiksan with fear but Seolwi with confidence. Chiksan tries to stop Seolwi by bringing Captain's name. But regardless, Seolwi finishes the job, with a stab through the heart. Chiksan gashes out blood and drops to the ground lifeless. Seolwi, standing tall, remarks that he really killed Chiksan. Now there is no turning back. Later we see a dead body sinking into the water, covered with cloth and tied to a big stone, presumably belonging to that chicken bastard. Seolwi, who just got rid of Chiksan's body, is standing and looking into the water. The wind is gently blowing his hair, and Bro is in deep thoughts. He remarks that after killing Chiksan, the text over his head disappeared. At first, nothing changed about Seolwi. But after he saw his reflection on the surface of the water, he'd noticed the change in his own text, which now said, 2 coins, 2 chances. We see towering cliffs rising dramatically from the water's edge, forming a narrow, winding passage just wide enough for a single boat to navigate. In the boat, Seolwi sits with 6 others, all wearing similar clothes. Seolwi clenches his fists in frustration, remembering the mission that cost them their lives last time. But he knows if he had stayed behind, Jokmyong would have killed him anyway. They reach the end of the river. Seolwi tries to get out of the boat, but we can see 3 people already on shore. Even though Seolwi was sitting in the front, makes no sense. Regardless, as he steps out, he sees his reflection in the water. Above his head, the text reads, 2 coins, 2 chances. He knows it increased by 1 coin and chance after killing Chiksan, but he doesn't fully understand what it means. Suddenly, a blonde woman who was sitting beside him alerts him. Her name is Sujin Cheol, the commander of the Flying Hand Company, and she's in charge of Seolwi's group. She calls him Lieutenant, warning him to stay vigilant as there are members of the Manhwa sect nearby. Hearing this, Seolwi bows and nods respectfully. Then, she orders him to return to her immediately after assessing the number of enemies and surveying the terrain. Meanwhile, in Seolwi's mind, he questions why Sujin Cheol, commander of 3 squads from the Flying Hand Company, is not leading the party further. Noticing Seolwi's hesitation, Cheol tells him to get moving. Seolwi obeys and commands his party to proceed. The lieutenant and his party sprints through the bushes, leaving behind the commander. Seolwi is suspicious of Cheol's actions and contemplates that last time on this mission, things moved too fast for him to notice much. He was focused on his upcoming promotion. Now, however, he senses something fishy about the situation. He concludes that either Lord Sama ordered her actions, or she is a traitor secretly working with the Manhwa sect. This realization enrages Seolwi, who finally catches up with everything. Suddenly, Seolwi orders everyone to turn right. His companions question him, but this time he shouts, insisting they turn right. Among themselves, the subordinates wonder if they are supposed to go left and question their leader's motive. Despite their doubts, they have to follow his orders, so they take the right path. Seolwi remembers from his last experience that the bastards from the Manhwa sect ambushed them as if they knew they were coming. Determined not to be slaughtered like animals again, he refuses to make the same mistake. All these thoughts make Seolwi remember why he joined the demon cult in the first place, to become strong as hell. He also considers the possibility that the text above his head, which says 2 chances, means this is his second to last chance in life. Suddenly, the group halts due to spotting a guard post. They all hide behind a bush, and the ginger companion asks Seolwi for his orders. Meanwhile, this encounter leaves Seolwi visibly angry, knowing that if they pass by the outpost, the other party members will realize something is wrong. So Bro decides to go and inspect the place himself. Everyone, visibly sweating with droplets trailing down their cheeks, watched as Seolwi made his way to inspect the place. With a few swift jumps, Seolwi positioned himself next to the outpost. He remarked that a first-rate fighter, such as himself, could easily handle an ordinary lookout soldier. However, if a warrior with a very strong aura resided inside the base, he would be doomed. Peeking through the window and noticing no one inside, Seolwi assembled his comrades. As he did, his mind wandered to his future, knowing he couldn't return to the demon cult base after killing Chiksan. Meanwhile, the others whispered among themselves, noting that their lieutenant is acting a little strange today. The ginger-haired companion warns Seolwi that the guards will soon return and suggests they check the terrain and report back to the commander. Seolwi is deep in thought, not answering the questions everyone is asking him. He realizes there is only one thing he can do. Suddenly, a blue window appears with 3 different choices: fight against the enemy, talk things out with the enemy, or escape from here. Also, there is a 10-second cooldown. Seolwi looks at the options, almost pissing himself as he questions why the window appeared. Did an enemy approach them? But he sees no one and hears nothing. Time has stopped for everyone except Seolwi, and the countdown is ticking. Desperately trying to decide, he surprisingly chooses the option to talk things out. The moment he makes his choice, everything that was frozen starts to move again. Seolwi shouts, "Show yourself!" Hearing this, everyone gets into a defensive position, ready for action. Seolwi gets no response, so he thinks his assumption was wrong and that there are no enemies around. However, he couldn't be more mistaken. The enemy suddenly appears behind them, inside the circle they had formed, and remarks, "Someone is quite observant." Everyone jumps and turns to face the warrior who appeared out of nowhere, giving them all a heart attack. The warrior is none other than the beloved Jongmyong-gu, the strongest warrior around, the ultimate master of the Manhwa sword technique, the biggest threat to the demon cult. Seeing everyone's reaction, Master Gu responds, "Looks like you all know who I am." The appearance of the strongest warrior leaves Seolwi in shock. After all, he and his companions had taken a completely different path and were far from where they were last time. He questions, "What are you doing here? How did you know we were here?" Master Gu responds, "I don't know what you mean. It was you guys who walked into my patrol area." This answer leaves Seolwi with even more questions. Master Gu then draws his sword and remarks, "Enough with the chit-chat. All of you demon cult bastards are dead." His intimidating presence makes everyone feel a wave of fear. Meanwhile, Seolwi goes into one of those main character flashbacks and remarks, "I guess deep down, part of me must have known that nothing would change in this life either. Whether I die now or later, the end result will still be the same. But still, I thought there must be some way, some hope for me. It's been a tough life, but I got through it with the hope that things might get better one day." With this flashback, Bro gets a boost in morale and shouts, "Everyone, run away!" Hearing the orders, the comrades make a 180-degree turn and rush away, following their lieutenant. Seeing this, Master Gu clicks his tongue, remarking, "Too slow." And with a speed that none of them could even notice Master Gu, he slashes through Seolwee's chest. Seolwee lets out a groan and gushes out blood. Later, we see that Master Gu's attack didn't just hit Seolwee. He also slashed through the other 5 companions following the protagonist. With cold eyes, Master Gu slashes his sword once more to get rid of the blood, then starts walking toward Seolwee, mocking him for being weak and questioning if he really is the leader. How pathetic. Ignoring his comments, Seolwee looks up helplessly and asks, "How did you know?" Master Gu feigns ignorance. Seolwee persists, "You must have known we were coming. Only that can explain it." Hearing this, Master Gu grabs Seolwee by the hair with an intense glare, looks into his eye and questions, "How did you know I was here?" Seolwee looks into Master Gu's eyes without answering, but in his mind he thinks, "This bastard tracked us way too fast. He must have known when we would arrive, otherwise it would be impossible for him to find us." Seeing that Seolwee isn't one to talk, Master Gu says, "I guess I can tell you since you're already done for. Think about it. One of us gets to add more kills to his record, while the other gets rid of someone who is becoming a nuisance. It's a good deal for both sides." Here, Master Gu is referring to himself as he is increasing his kill count by eliminating this party of 6, and he's implying that Lord Sama wants Seolwee eliminated. Seolwee's actions, like going through Lord Sama's office and causing other disruptions, have made him a nuisance to Lord Sama. All this leaves Seolwee overwhelmed with different emotions. He grits his teeth hard. Blood is streaming from his eyes and is glaring at Master Gu with a mix of defiance and despair. Noticing all this, Master Gu chuckles and remarks, "Look at this, a disciple of the demon cult crying like a baby." He then lets go of Seolwee's hair, mocking him by saying, "Thank you to Seolwee, after all you are boosting my kill count." Master Gu readies his sword for one final strike to end the miserable life of this weak lieutenant. As Seolwee faces death, fear fills his eyes. Desperate, he pleads for another chance at life from the blue window, just as he was granted before, and just looks at Master Gu's while his sword descends, and Seolwee's head is sliced cleanly off. Seolwee slowly wakes up in a serene pond, surrounded by the same endless expanse of water that marked the place of his last death. The familiar blue window appears before him, presenting the same 3 options he had faced when he first encountered this mysterious screen. Seeing the window, Seolwee's expression turns serious as he ponders the options before him. He immediately discards the restart option, knowing that with this choice, history will repeat itself in the end. He will face the same outcome. With that decision made, he focuses on the second option, load save point. The screen changes and a message appears, indicating that there is no saved data available and instructing him to return to the previous screen. Without the option to load a save point, Seolwee chooses to continue. The system immediately warns him that he cannot continue if an opponent completely overwhelms him, or if he cannot persuade them verbally. Confused, Seolwee mutters, "What?" Suddenly, Master Gu appears before him, and Seolwee feels a shock of fear, almost like a heart attack. He then notices a window next to Master Gu, displaying his 6 abilities, each with power levels in the millions. The system compares Seolwee's stats with Master Gu's. Seolwee has only 2 moves, each with a power level of just 1,000. The window is basically telling bro to look at the difference and yet you want to continue. Just go back and choose the return option. And so does Seolwee. Seolwee opens his eyes and sits up in bed. I don't know what is wrong with his goofy-looking face, but yeah. He laughs, in confusion, asks himself if he might be possessed. But if it means staying alive, I'm okay with that, he mutters, deciding not to stay put, knowing that Chiksan and Jokmyoung will soon come for him. Seolwee quickly hides. As predicted, the two arrive, and Seolwi watches them as they are questioning Seolwi's whereabouts standing next to his bed. He notices that Chiksan no longer has any text over his head. Seolwi concludes that he can't gain life from the same person twice and guesses that he now has only one chance left. As he recently died his 2 chances, one of them was used. Now, with newfound hope from surviving gets confidence. He resolves to become stronger than these bastards and get his revenge so he can stay alive. Moments later, we see a half-naked Seolwi running away. He stops briefly, taking deep breaths. Beside him, he notices a mirror and glances at his reflection. As he had guessed, 1 coin has been deducted from his total. Remembering his predicament, he bites his lip and exhales deeply, asking himself what he is supposed to do when faced with an enemy he can't defeat. Then, recalling his meeting with the 2 lords, he starts running back. In the meeting, Seolwi bows down to the ground and introduces himself to Lord Sama and Lord Dang. He clearly learned from last time to show utmost respect. Lord Sama clears his throat and begins to introduce Seolwi to Lord Dang. Lord Dang remarks that Seolwi looks promising. This compliment shocks Seolwi, as last time, Lord Dang had criticized him instead. Then Lord Sama speaks again, asking Seolwi if he is interested in working as a secretary in the Heavenly Sun Archive. Hearing these words, Seolwi remembers that this was exactly what Lord Sama said the last time. He feels he has no choice. Suddenly, a loud slam is heard as Seolwi slams his head on the ground. He begins to speak, saying, "I am sorry, my lord. That is too great of an honor for someone like me. I don't deserve such a privilege." This leaves both Lord Dang and Lord Sama surprised. Lord Sama asks, "Is that so?" While Lord Dang lets out a thoughtful, Once again, Lord Sama begins to speak and remarks, "Anyway, I have a mission for you." Before he can finish talking, Seolwi shouts, "My lord, I actually have something to tell you." The blue screen appears in front of presenting the same option as last time. Looking at different options, Seolwi have been waiting for this moment ever since he woke up, knowing that the first and second missions are both dead ends from his past experience. Without hesitation, Seolwi chooses the third option, which is to say, "I'll cut off my right arm for you, sir." After choosing this option, without any control, he shouts, "I'll cut off my right arm for you, sir," while grabbing his right arm. "This is my only option at the moment, and if Lord Sama refuses, then that's that," Seolwi thinks to himself, while his heart is beating very fast. Lord Sama stares at Seolwi because of his strange behavior, questioning him, "Where is this coming from?" "I have been doing some thinking, sir. It was arrogant of me to ask to learn advanced techniques before I was ready. In my desperation to learn, I even searched your office without your permission. That is the reason, my lord," answers Seolwi. He once again slams his head on the floor and declares, "I don't deserve to live, but I want to show you my loyalty, sir." Seeing this, Lord Dang finds Seolwi even more amusing than Lord Sama had described, a happy expression on his face. While Lord Dang speaks, Lord Sama taps his fingers on the table, deep in thought. Suddenly, Lord Sama pauses and tosses a dagger in front of Seolwi. With a serious face, he looks into Seolwi's eyes and tells him to go ahead and prove it. As Seolwi picks up the dagger, his heart races faster and faster. But you know our boy isn't one to give up. Seolwi starts to cut off his arm, blood spurting out as he shouts in pain. Suddenly, Lord Sama shouts, "That's enough." We see a slash, making it look like Seolwi cut off his arm, but surprisingly, our waifu had already slammed the dagger away from this maniac's hand. Lord Sama, with a joyful face, points at Seolwi and tells Lord Dang, "This guy is a different breed." Lord Dang laughs and agrees with this statement, and remarking, "I have never seen anyone like that in all my years in the demon cult. I like his spirit." Meaning this guy got balls, Seolwi hears a thud. It's from a plaque that Lord Sama tossed toward him, signifying that he has been given the position of secretary in the Heavenly Sun Archive. Lord Sama then tells him, "Give it a try. After all, you do want to work there." Seolwi picks up the plaque, thinking, "So, I guess this was the right option. Out of all those choices, the one that seemed the craziest was the right one. He bows in appreciation and accepts the position, telling Lord Sama that he will never forget this favor. Lord Sama responds, "You better not." Seolwi stands up and respectfully excuses himself from the meeting, holding his half-cut arm. Meanwhile, both lords are laughing joyfully in the background. Seolwi realizes that whenever he is granted 3 options, one of them is always key to survival. Before leaving, Seolwi glances one last time at the 2 happy lords and, in his mind, remarks, "I will never forget today, you bastards." Now we see the Heavenly Sun Archive, a massive building. This building is the size of my... Sorry, I went off topic. Inside, the administrator is asking Seolwi a few questions such as his name, age, and more. In short, the protagonist is 27 years old and has 8 years of experience in the Flying Hand Company. The administrator reads that Seolwi placed 12th among 1,000 trainees at the Skyward Camp, which is the basic training for newly joined members. He wonders why a high-ranking warrior is here. The administrator also notices Seolwi's slumped arm and asks about it. Seolwi responds by calling it a minor accident. The administrator then reads that Seolwi was recommended by Lord Gui-sama. He instructs Seolwi to follow him and leads him to the lower floor where he will be working. The administrator explains that Seolwi will be responsible for this room, and if any of the books get damaged, it will be his responsibility. He also needs to sort and shelve all the books. Turning to Seolwi, the administrator asks why he is so quiet and if he has a problem. Seolwi answers in the negative, and the man continues to explain Seolwi's job. Meanwhile, Seolwi starts looking around, knowing that this place holds no advanced martial arts. However, he isn't looking for anything too fancy, just a scroll to assist him in killing Du Hong. Now guys, I don't know if Seolwi is referring to kill Du Hong or not, and couldn't find who Du Hong is. Everything hints to this old man to be Du Hong, so we will go with that. Seolwi looks at the top of Du Hong's head and notices the +1 life text. Seolwi remarks to himself that even if life doesn't go well and he ends up dying, he can start afresh by killing this guy. However, he doesn't know how strong Du Hong is. He calls for him, and when Du Hong looks back at Seolwi, a chill runs all over Seolwi's body. Regardless, Seolwi reaches inside his kimono and, in an instant, stabs the administrator. Du Hong, in shock, shouts at him, calling him a crazy bastard, and kicks him away. Realizing that he didn't stab hard enough, Seolwi contemplates that if this guy is only worth 1 coin, he shouldn't be much stronger than Chiksan. Du Hong, in order to defend himself, takes out his own dagger. Seolwi continues to attack, but reminds himself that he should finish this guy as fast as he can. The longer he drags the fight, the worse it is for him. Seeing an opening, Du Hong leaps forward and tackles Seolwi. This leaves Seolwi vulnerable, as he can't use his right arm for defense. Both fall to the ground, and Du Hong takes advantage of Seolwi's injury, putting pressure on his right arm. This inflicts a lot of pain, and Seolwi shouts in agony. With one last slash, Du Hong ends the protagonist's miserable life. Or so we thought. This scenario was what Seolwi imagined would happen if he tried to take this man's life. Du Hong, hearing Seolwi, turns his head and questions, "What is it?" Seolwi lets out a smile and, instead of a dagger, pulls out a handful of coins from his kimono. "The weather is getting colder day by day, and you are working very hard, so I wanted to show my gratitude. Please accept at least this much," remarks Seolwi. Du Hong, with a serious face, questions Seolwi, "Is this what I think it is?" This leads Seolwi to believe that Du Hong doesn't accept bribery, leaving him feeling screwed. But to his surprise, Du Hong, with lightning speed, snatches the coins from Seolwi's hand. With a satisfied face, he tells Seolwi, "It seems like you are a quick learner, so you will manage just fine. If you have any questions, just ask me." Du Hong then mutters Seolwi's name and gives him some advice. Don't attract too much attention if you want to survive for long, if that is. With these words, he leaves the room, holding his hands behind his back just like my long-dead grandpa. Seolwi watches from behind as Du-hong leaves. In his mind, he knows that if he wants to survive until the day he takes his revenge and leaves this cult, he will need extra lives. As he sits down to pick up a book from the ground, he questions how he can deal with Du-hong with an injured arm. Guys, this confirms the fact that the administrator's name is Du-hong, and that Seolwi intends to find a useful scroll to assist him in killing Du-hong. Time passes, and now it's afternoon near sunset. Inside the Heavenly Sun archive, Seolwi sits on the stairs, sighing in frustration as he has been sorting books for hours. Despite his efforts, there are still mountains of them left to take care of. Seolwi reads the title of the yellow book in his hand. Deep Inside. The strange name piques his curiosity, so he decides to inspect the book further. Upon seeing the content of the book, Seolwi blushes. Not gonna lie, this guy's face reminds me of when I first discovered Deep Inside on the internet, with its wide range of options to choose from, those good old days. Bro stores the book inside his kimono. We all are aware of his intentions. Suddenly, the system notification asks Seolwi what kind of martial arts he is eager to learn, while one of the books in front of Seolwi's feet emits a blue light. This phenomenon leaves Seolwi with many questions. He lifts up the shining book, noting that he can move this time, so time hasn't stopped. This indicates that when time does stop, he is immobilized just like others with the sole exception that he can think. Then he reads the title of the book, A Guide to Samsuwan. All of a sudden, the system window appears and presents him with 3 options, with only one being available while the other 2 are locked. Seolwi mutters, Choguk School. It comes from the same school as Fire Mass Demon style that Guisama has mastered. This school is the 3rd option and currently unavailable for Seolwi to learn. He then reads the 2nd option, the Joksu School, renowned because former Deputy Commander Yeomgi-gal had mastered it. Seolwi joyfully looks at the book in his hand, thinking he has finally found a useful martial art book. He then glances back at the blue screen and gets an idea to test what happens if he chooses an unavailable option. The system prompt warns him that he can't choose this option due to his right arm being injured. Seolwi remarks, only one option is left, and I've never heard of this school before, but if Sohul School is among these 2 famous schools, it must be somewhat powerful. With that, he selects the first option, and the screen once again presents him with 3 choices to choose from: sword technique, hand technique, and foot technique, with all options being available for him to choose. Seolwi ponders for a moment and decides to choose the sword technique. His reasoning is that he can learn all of them eventually, so he will start with a sword for now. The system confirms that he has selected the sword technique and indicates that he will be shown a video. A blue light circles around in front of Seolwi, and a shadow forms in the middle of this light, beginning to move. Each movement is precise and methodical, demonstrating how to position the feet, hands, and sword. In amazement, Seolwi remarks, this shadow is teaching him the basics of the Sohul School. Not just movement with its frosty breaths. It even taught him the correct breathing technique. Seolwi was still on the stairs, observing the shadow's movement, and suddenly the system showed him a window. He started to stare at the system's new window that had appeared in front of him. This time, it displayed 2 charts. Charts are meant to simplify information, but instead it's making things more complex for him to understand. In my opinion, like look at those arrows. After reading the information on the window, he have no clue as to what is going on. He stood up, picked up his sword, and moved toward the shadow. As he unsheathed his sword with the help of friction between his right arm and side, he muttered to himself, I don't know what these charts mean, but I am certain of one thing. This is a chance to try again. I don't know why all of this is happening to me, but if it means I can exact my revenge and stay alive, then I would be a fool to let this opportunity pass by me. And starts to follow the shadow's movements determined, he set his goal to kill Du-hong with this new technique. He was confident that with this chance, he could achieve victory over the director of the Heavenly Sun Archive. Time moves on, and inside the Heavenly Sun Archive, we see a mouse nibbling on something from the ground. Suddenly, a loud slam echoes through the room, startling the hungry mouse into stillness. The slam was caused by Seolwi, who, after some intense training, has finally mastered the sword technique. With a wide grin on his face, Ciolwi looks around at the chaos he has caused. Bookshelves have toppled over. He feels proud as he realizes he's managed to exert this much power using only one arm. However, the sight of the destruction around him makes him realize that he has damaged the archive room he is responsible for. Ciolwi continues his training diligently, and as time passes, 1 month goes by in a blur. In this time, he has become skilled at performing very swift movements with just one arm. He reflects on his progress, noting that over the past month he has managed to learn all 3 techniques: sword, hand, and foot techniques of the Sohul school. After the sword technique, it was much easier to grasp the hand and foot techniques. Despite his progress, Ciolwi is still unable to perform the grand ship technique. He has studied the description thoroughly but only partially understands the instructions related to the left hand. The rest of the technique remains unclear for him. He struggles to make sense of the directions. Ciolwi sits down to take a rest, looking at the window in front of him. He is eating some simple food from the pot beside him, a modest reward for his hard work. He shows his eagerness to learn the grand ship technique, but he is still content with the progress he has made with the martial arts of the Sohul school, something he could only have dreamed of in normal circumstances. Ciolwi thinks to himself, "Now I might have a chance to beat Dohong." This thought makes him let out a strange, almost eerie laugh. As he laughs, the movement causes pain in his right arm, which results in him freezing in his place to stop the pain. Now that he had grown stronger, Ciolwi decided to finish storing all the books. As he is doing his job, he abruptly sits down and lets out a deep sigh of exhaustion. For him, it felt as if he had been sorting books for ages, and he was thoroughly sick of them. He picked up one of the books, hoping that maybe he can find some guidance that might assist him in understanding the guide to Samsuan. Just as he began to examine the book, he was interrupted by someone from behind. "This guy is very green." "Yeah, that's my opinion." This feminine green-looking guy tells Ciolwi that he thought there won't be someone else in this place. As Bro turned his head, Ciolwi's eyes widened in surprise, and he froze, staring blankly at the newcomer. Noticing Ciolwi's stare, the green-looking figure calmly asked, "Is there something on my face?" The question was posed with a respectful tone, though it carried a hint of curiosity about why Ciolwi was staring at him. In his mind, Ciolwi realized that this guy is incredibly strong and called him a beast. The reason is that this feminine-looking guy gives 10 freaking lives if eliminated by Ciolwi. This encounter reminded our protagonist of Dohong's advice to stay under the radar if he wanted to survive in this place. Ciolwi desperately bows down and answers, "Not at all, sir," implying there isn't anything on the green man's face. Seeing Ciolwi's respect, the green guy smiles and tells him not to be so formal. He then asks for Ciolwi's name. Still bowing, Ciolwi answers his question. Meanwhile, he thinks, even Lord Sama's bodyguard, the baddie named Hyukbi, was worth 4 lives. I can't even imagine this guy's power potential. After hearing Ciolwi's name, the green guy asks what he's doing here. Ciolwi respectfully explains that his job is to sort the books. The green guy nods and asks one last question. "Have you seen one of my favorite books? It's called The Guide to Samsuan." Ciolwi's world crumbles as his heart skips a beat. He looks at the book in his hand, sweating. Time stops, and Ciolwi is presented with 2 options to answer, "I haven't seen the book," or to say, "I have learned that martial art." He realizes that choosing the wrong option could get him killed. Sweating profusely, he ponders the right choice, knowing he can't admit he learned the martial art from the book, and he wonders why this green person is looking for the book. He comes to the conclusion where there isn't any right option. Realizing he doesn't have much time left, he decides to choose the lesser of 2 evils. Time starts to flow again and Ciolwi answers, "I haven't seen that book, sir." Hearing this, the green guy remarks, "Is that so?" and starts looking around, muttering, "Where did I put that book?" Seeing his reaction, Ciolwi questions himself if he made the right choice. Just to be safe, he offers to look for the book too. The green guy accepts his offer with a smile and starts to walk away. Ciolwi lets out a sigh of relief. Suddenly, the green man clasps his hands together and says, "Oh, I just remembered where I put the book." Hearing this, confused Ciolwi asks, "Where is it?" The green guy turns his head, looking like a green devil, and answers, "You are holding it." Once again, Ciolwi's world crumbles, and he mutters, "I messed up." The green figure, now with a serious face, starts to approach Seolwi, while Bro is sweating. From the moment the green devil started to walk, for Seolwi each second became an hour. In his mind, he is pondering so many things. Did he choose the wrong option? Can he fight this guy? Can he escape? Once the figure stops, Seolwi tries to say something, but the green figure straight up starts to laugh like a maniac and remarks, "I was just joking," while trying to wipe away the tears from his eyes due to laughing so hard. Then he says, "I'm sorry, that was a mean joke." He proceeds to ask, "You just started to work here. My name is Ilgi-bu, nice to meet you." Once again with a smiling face. Ilgi-bu starts to walk away, noting that he will just borrow the archive for a while. Seolwi is scared and creeped out. He thinks that Ilgi-bu's smile is very creepy, and he can't understand anything about this green devil. Expresses the desire to know who this man is. Moments later, Ilgi-bu starts to speak with Seolwi after being quiet the entire time and just examining the books. He remarks, "I heard you got the job on the recommendation of Lord Sama." Seolwi, hearing the question, answers in the affirmative. Ilgi-bu continues, "That is very surprising, as that old man isn't the type to do any favors." Bro responds, "Lord Sama has always been kind to me," while letting a fake smile out. Ilgi-bu then questions, "If he favors you that much, then why did he make you cut your arm?" Hearing these words, Seolwi flinches, realizing this guy knows who he is, but he just remains silent and has no answer. Ilgi-bu apologizes, calling himself a very curious person, and says he didn't mean to pry into Seolwi's business. He remarks that he is just curious to learn more about a new face, adding, "At least the old man didn't make you cut your own throat, right?" while flipping through the pages of a book. Seolwi just stands there and listens while the green devil continues to speak. As tough as life will be without an arm, it's better than dying. These comments enrage Seolwi, who remarks in his mind that this guy really knows how to get under my skin. Ilgi-bu proceeds to say, "I guess now you have to give up on learning and mastering demonic martial arts." Seolwi is getting more and more eager to learn Ilgi-bu's position, as he called Lord Sama an old man moments ago. This green devil asks, "Does it surprise you?" The poor soul who is being played by this devil answers with another question, "What do you mean, sir?" Ilgi-bu, while smirking, responds, "I mean, does it surprise you that someone as young as me can refer to Lord Sama as an old man?" Seolwi's mind goes blank for a second, and he wonders if this guy can read his mind, but he just bows and answers respectfully, "I couldn't dare to think something so impertinent." Ilgi-bu shrugs it off as natural curiosity and tells Seolwi that it's okay while putting the book he was holding back on the shelf. Then he asks, "Tell me?" This question makes Seolwi ponder what he means, as Seolwi has no clue what he is asking. The devil continues by asking, "The Sohul martial arts, how much have you learned?" Everything goes blank for Seolwi. After a moment, he regains his composure and answers, "Pardon me, I don't know what you mean by those words." Ilgi-bu starts to walk and says, "Is that so?" Seolwi doubles down on his argument, answering, "I can't even use my right arm in my current pathetic state. How can I learn martial arts?" Ilgi-bu pats him on the back like a pet and lets out a chuckle, remarking, "It's all right, you don't need to look so worried." Then his face shows his true colors, and a deadly aura emanates from him. "But if that isn't true, then you have taken me for a fool." This display of power makes Seolwi sweat more than a liter of water. The green devil starts to leave, holding his hands together behind his back. Seolwi just stares at the departing Ilgi-bu, then lets out a sigh of relief. He thought his heart would explode if that guy stayed any longer. But to everyone's disappointment, the system window appears, shocking not just Seolwi, but all of us. This system is trying to make Seolwi sweat and lose all the water from his body, ending his life due to dehydration. The system gives 3 options. Option number 1 is, Aren't you the fourth disciple of Chinoma? Option number 2 is, I actually learned the Sohul martial arts from the book you were looking for. Option number 3 is, you seem to be more or less in the same situation as me. When Seolwi reads the first option, he notices that this guy is the fourth disciple of Chinoma. He had heard many rumors about him. He is ranked 30th in the demon cult's hierarchy with almost transcendence-level martial arts ability. He can't believe he is in the presence of such a beast, and his heart races. Then he starts to read the other options. He can't choose the second option, as that would kill him instantly since it's like confessing to his lie. The third option is the worst of all. In that case, he chooses the first option. This menace turns his face with crimson pupils, looks at Seolwi, and compliments him for being impressive. He answers, I don't know how you figured that out, but it doesn't change anything. I am just another person caught up in the struggle for power. Seolwi bows all the way to the ground and apologizes, saying he didn't mean to ask this question in such an impolite way. To all you confused onlookers, Ilgibu's answer confirms that he is indeed the 30th most influential person in the cult. Seolwi is apologizing because he did not show enough respect to Ilgibu, having been a bit too casual with this green-looking devil. The green devil stands there quietly just looking down at Seolwi, observing his apology, and the room falls silent for a few seconds. During these few silent seconds, Seolwi thanks his lucky stars that Ilgibu had no reason to hide his identity. If there had been an important reason, Seolwi would have been in trouble. For the confused viewers, Ganma is the real name of this girly-looking devil. He had been using the alias Ilgibu up until this point, but Seolwi has now revealed his actual name. Ganma breaks the silence saying, "It doesn't matter," and turns to leave, instructing Seolwi to continue his work. Seolwi lets out a sigh of relief, thinking that he has survived the cruel system that forced him into talking the last time. He feels a flicker of hope as Ganma walks away, believing that things might be okay now. But suddenly, Seolwi realizes that time has frozen once again, and the sound of the system Windows notification startles him. The two choices displayed are the leftover options he didn't select last time. This infuriates Seolwi, and he grits his teeth in frustration. The system window presents us with the notification indicating Seolwi's choice, which is to confess that he learned the Sohul martial arts. As time resumes, Seolwi, now on his knees, says, I have actually learned the Sohul martial arts from the book you were looking for. Ganma stops in his tracks, his expression darkening as he says, Is that so? So, you're confessing that you took me for a fool? I guess that means I have to kill you. Without hesitation, Ganma dashes toward Seolwi, drawing his sword. The sight of the unsheathed blade sends Seolwi into a panic. The sword swings towards him. Just as the blade is about to decapitate Seolwi, time stops again. The system window appears, offering him a single option, the option being, You seem to be more or less in the same situation as me. Seolwi has 500 seconds to think about his decision. He looks at Ganma, whose sword is about to cut his neck. Then, shifting his gaze to the system panel, he complains, At this point, I don't have an option. It's forcing me to choose the worst one. He notices the time limit. Unlike before, it's a 3-digit number this time. He realizes the system is giving him more time to think and figure out what to do after his decision. Understanding that there's a way to survive after choosing this option, he sees he can use it to his advantage if he plays his cards right. He decides to come up with a solution. First, he assesses his position. One of Cheonma's disciples has a sword pointed at him. There must be a way to persuade this madman. But how? He ponders while his heart is beating fast as fuck. Seolwi recalls the way Ganma talked about Lord Sama, realizing that Ganma isn't a big fan of him. He also remembers Ganma saying he doesn't really care about such things. Looking at the option presented by the system, Seolwi concludes it might be related. Maybe Ganma is in the same position as him. Seolwi, understanding the desire for power better than anyone, he clenches his fist hard and mumbles to himself. If only he can find a way to calm Ganma down and offer him more power. Suddenly it clicks. He remembers Jongmyeong-gu and how he knew of Seolwi's whereabouts during that messed-up mission where he died. After coming up with a plan, he wishes for a good outcome. The system prompt notifies him that he has chosen his option, and time starts to flow. Seolwi shouts, "You seem to be more or less in the same situation as me." Ganma stops in his tracks, and with a cold and murderous gaze, questions, "What did you just say?" Seolwi, seeing the opportunity, starts to explain himself. No matter how hard you tried, there was no way for you to compare with the other disciples of Cheonma. By the time you were chosen as a disciple, the others already had strong backings. You couldn't do anything about it. Ganma, pointing his sword, tells Seolwi not to change the subject, then puts the sword closer to Seolwi's neck and asks, "What are you trying to say?" Seolwi rejoices in his mind, realizing it's working. Ganma is listening. Seolwi continues and remarks, "Ganma, try to rally the support of Guisama, Lord of the Great Imperial Pavilion." Ganma's expression changes, and Seolwi notices this. Bowing down to the ground, he says, "The Great Imperial Pavilion is the central branch of the Crimson Demon Palace. If you can get the Great Imperial Pavilion on your side, you will gain the support of the Crimson Demon Palace, the main headquarters of the demon cult." Then Seolwi questions, "Isn't that why you came to see me?" Hearing all that, Ganma puts away his sword. Seolwi realizes that now is the time and shouts, "You didn't come here for the guide to Samsuwon? If you did, you would have already taken the book and left. I thought about it. Why would a disciple of Cheonma come here in the first place? And why do you keep talking to me? Someone who is a nobody in the demon cult?" After thinking about it, I realized something. You came to see someone who might know about Lord Sama's weakness. Ganma, after hearing the explanation, questions Seolwi. "What makes you think that?" Seolwi answers by pointing out, "Isn't it strange that from the Flying Hand Company, which I am a lieutenant of, everyone died in that mission appointed by Lord Sama about a month ago except me, who changed position the day before the mission?" He continues, "I know you sensed something suspicious about that event and came to see me to investigate, which means you are after something." Ganma bursts out laughing like a maniac and praises Seolwi, calling him amusing. "No wonder that old Sama doesn't like you," he remarks. Then he says, "Let's assume you are right. So, are you saying you're going to take advantage of Guisama's weakness for me?" Seolwi nods in agreement, and Ganma asks for his plan. Seolwi hesitates for a moment, and the Green Devil mocks him. "After all that big talk, you have nothing to say?" Seolwi, one hand on his knee while looking at the floor, questions, "I need to know something. If I get you what you want, what will I get in return?" Ganma, hearing this bold claim, frowns and asks, "What?" Seolwi, still on the ground in front of Ganma, reminds him, "My life is at stake here, so I need to know if I will get anything good from this." Ganma, looking down at Seolwi, answers, "Your life isn't worth shit, just so you know." Seolwi counters, "I know my life isn't worth anything, but if I can save you time and effort or even give you a good opportunity, that should be worth something." Ganma turns his side and glances at Seolwi, responding, "Fine. If the information you give me is worth something, I will reward you accordingly." Seolwi, after confirming that he will get rewards, reveals that Guisama and Jongmyeong-gu of the Manhwa sect are conspiring together. Ganma, hearing Lord Sama's weakness, asks for some evidence. Seolwi reminds him, Lord Sama is not one to leave behind evidence. Ganma responds, "So it's just a hunch?" Seolwi points out, "With the power you hold, unlike me, you can figure out the truth. After all, Lord Sama commands many high-ranking officials. and it's really easy for someone of your status to make one of them spill the beans. Ganma grins while approaching and getting down on his knees, face to face with Seolwi. He remarks, "I will consider your proposal, but first you need to do something." He proceeds to say, "I want you to kill Jokmyong." Seolwi looks at Ganma with a puzzled face, and Ganma asks, "Don't you want to kill him?" Seolwi answers, "It's not that I don't want to. I'm wondering about the reason." Ganma tells him, "You need to prove your loyalty. I can't just take your word for it. For all I know, maybe you are working with old Sama. Can you do it?" Seolwi responds, "I, Seolwi, lieutenant of the Flying Hand Company, will kill Jokmyong." Hearing that, Ganma looks at Seolwi with a stern expression, and Seolwi proceeds to say, "I will prove that I can be trusted." Under the moonlight, Seolwi walks with determination, his thoughts focused on his mission to kill Jongmyong. Ganma had instructed him to meet on the 12th floor after completing the task. Seolwi contemplates that in Ganma's eyes, both he and Jokmyong are at the same level. They are both considered ants compared to a disciple of Cheonma, but Seolwi knows that Jokmyong is on a whole different level compared to him. Seolwi says, "Status window," and the system prompt appears showing his stats. The window indicates that Seolwi's movement is restricted due to an injured arm. His health is just above 100, and his chi is at 150. Seolwi has 3 main techniques: demonic sword techniques, black demon sword technique, and Sohul school. However, he only possesses 1 attack skill, a weak sword blast. He then compares his stats to Jokmyong's. The window shows that Jokmyong's body is significantly stronger, with health just above 1400 and chi almost at 1600. Jokmyong is a master of the shadowless technique, leg speed boost, and ghost shadow walk. Jokmyong has 3 attack skills: sword blast, Hoseion blast, and leg blast, along with 1 defensive skill, cloud walk. Seolwi thinks that the only way to overcome this vast difference in power and survive is by utilizing the Sohul school techniques. Seolwi crosses a bridge, deep in thought as he devises a plan. He considers when people are most likely to drop their guard, whether it's during a meal, while meeting a loved one, or perhaps when asleep. His conclusion is surprising. It's in the toilet. Seolwi reflects on how Jokmyong used to beat him up out of boredom or because he didn't like Seolwi's appearance. Determined to find a way to defeat him, Seolwi decides that the best time to strike would be when Jokmyong is in a vulnerable state inside the toilet. He steps into the restroom, looking at the hole where people sit and relieve themselves. Seolwi's plan is to hide inside the hole and attack when no one expects it. However, the overpowering stench is unbearable. Seolwi covers his nose with his scarf to mitigate the smell. Suddenly, Seolwi hears footsteps and, peering through the cracks, sees Jokmyong approaching the restroom. Acting quickly, Seolwi jumps into the hole, relieved to find it clean, thanks to the janitorial work who recently cleaned this place. From his hidden vantage point, he watches as Jokmyong enters the restroom and drops his pants to take a shit. Seolwi imbues his sword with his chi and prepares to strike. As he sees Jokmyong sitting down, he readies himself for the attack. However, he is met with a missile strike from Jokmyong. Disgusted but still determined, Seolwi continues his assault. Just as his sword is about to dive into Jokmyong, the system prompt notifies him to use the grand ship technique. Surprised, Seolwi sees the Windows notification. Golden opportunity detected. You have found the enemy's weakness, making it a good moment for a significant strike. Without hesitation, Seolwi's body with no control performs the grand ship technique, delivering a powerful slash. The attack strikes Jokmyong in the cheeks, causing a massive explosion that blows off the roof and inflicts severe injuries on Jokmyong. Blood gushes from him as he collapses, his health completely depleted. Jokmyong lies dead on the ground. Seolwi, stunned by the sheer power of his attack, wonders where this formidable aura came from while looking at his sword. Seolwi goes to wash away the filth and sits next to a lake. The water's reflection reveals to him that he now possesses 3 chances. Seolwi happily sits on the ground, laughing and holding his forehead in excitement. He asks for the status window, and notices that his chi hasn't decreased after using the grand ship technique. Pondering the requirements to activate it, he thinks that if he could use such a strong sword aura at will, he would be significantly stronger. Excitedly, he clenches his hand into a fist, but the movement causes pain in his right arm. He looks at his right arm, holds it, and remarks to himself that he has lost the use of his right arm in this life. On top of that, once everyone finds out that he killed Jokmyeong, he's going to be in big trouble. He realizes that with only one arm, he can't get any stronger, and decides he must make a plan for his next life. He ponders about going to Ganma in his next life, but wants to be careful. He can't really trust Ganma yet, nor has he figured out what Ganma is truly after. Standing up, he holds his jacket in his left arm and starts to walk away. We see him kneeling, saying, "Greetings, my lord. I would like to request an audience with you." He is speaking to Lord Sama. Lord Sama, looking down at the kneeling Seolwi, scolds him for daring to disturb him while he is studying. Noticing the foul smell emanating from Seolwi, Lord Sama questions him. With a cold face, Seolwi answers, "How else was I supposed to kill Jokmyeong?" Hearing this, Lord Sama's face twitches, and his red aura starts to leak. He approaches Seolwi, who struggles to breathe under the weight of Lord Sama's deadly aura. Lord Sama grabs Seolwi by the hair and, with a serious face, asks, "Have you spoken to someone?" Seolwi, shocked, stammers, "What do you mean, sir?" Lord Sama yanks Seolwi's hair and commands, "Don't look away from me. If you lie to me, I will kill you right here." Seolwi opens his mouth and remarks, "It doesn't matter who I met, sir. The real question is what you are hiding." Lord Sama jerks the hand holding Seolwi's hair and shouts, "What the hell happened to you in the Heavenly Sun Archive? Have you lost your mind? If you don't answer me..." Before he can finish, Seolwi interrupts, "Just be honest. You always wanted to kill me. If you really want to know, I met with Ganma. It was him who sent me here," shouts Seolwi. Lord Sama's expression darkens. He lets go of Seolwi's hair and stands up. Seolwi, of course, is lying. Ganma didn't send him here, and he doesn't care if Lord Sama finds out about this lie, because what Seolwi is really after is more important to him. Lord Sama asks Seolwi for his request. Seolwi answers, "Ganma sent me here to ask where and when you had a secret meeting with Jongmyeong-gu of the Manhwa sect." Lord Sama turns his back to Seolwi and takes a few steps. He stops and asks, "Is that all?" Seolwi knows that conspiring with an enemy sect is a grave offense, and the Manhwa sect is the greatest enemy of the demon cult. He wants to push his luck and responds, "Ganma wants to know when and where you plan to meet him next. My lord has been thinking about this a lot, so please tell the truth." Lord Sama answers, "Mount Hwanga. We are meeting at Mount Hwanga during the crescent moon at the beginning of the next month." Seolwi's face lights up with happiness, rejoicing that Lord Sama took the bait. He then notices a glowing object resembling a book behind Lord Sama. Leaning down to inspect, he realizes there isn't anything on the ground. Suddenly, the system prompt notifies him that he has obtained Yeoji-do, the secret map of the Lord of the Great Imperial Pavilion. The system asks if he wants more information. Seolwi, of course, wants more information. The system reveals that Yeoji-do is a book containing Gui-sama's favorite locations in the Central Plain. Additionally, the book contains information about Mount Hwanga and other critical locations in the Central Plains. Seolwi looks at the system window, baffled. He has never seen this phenomenon before. The system prompt notifies him that a toolbox has been created. It contains one medicinal herb, one red bean jelly, and the secret book that Seolwi just obtained. Puzzled, Seolwi has no clue what is going on. Suddenly, Lord Sama alerts him, saying, "By the way, when did the fourth disciple teach you how to fight?" Lord Sama remarks. Seolwi nervously answers, "A few days ago, sir." Lord Sama questions further, "And when did you meet Ganma?" "The day after that, I left to work at the Heavenly Sun Archive, sir," answers Seolwi. Lord Sama turns and says to Seolwi, "So within just a few days, Ganma trusted you enough to teach you martial arts. Had you killed Jokmyeong, and then sent you here to ask me for information. Is that what you are trying to say?" Seolwi nervously answers, "Yes, sir. Lord Sama slowly approaches Seolwi and suddenly stabs him. Blood spurts out of Seolwi's back, and his face tenses up. With a ferocious face, Lord Sama calls Seolwi a bastard. "You really think I am that stupid?" Lord Sama's hand reaches through Seolwi's body, blood dripping down from his fingers. Seolwi gasps, blood pouring from his mouth. He questions why he was born, how he ended up in this sect, and why killing people doesn't bother him. He further questions his motives for getting stronger, and why he has to obey those who are stronger than him. Lord Sama interrupts his thoughts. "Do you know where you messed up? It was when you agreed that Ganma taught you martial arts. Ganma can't teach anyone. He only knows martial arts from our master," he says, smirking. Seolwi, like a maniac, smirks back at him. "You clueless fool. You don't know anything." Lord Sama, puzzled, asks, "What are you saying? You already lost to me," Seolwi replies. Enraging Lord Sama, who calls Seolwi a little bastard and pulls his hand out from inside Seolwi. Blood gushes out even more, and Seolwi inevitably dies. The system prompt appears. "Now restarting." Seolwi opens his eyes and finds himself back in bed. He moves his right arm and is relieved to see it's fully healed. He puts a hand to his head, realizing he has only 2 lives left. He opens the status window and notices his health and chi have increased slightly now that his arm is healed. He also observes that the Sohul school is missing from his main techniques, though he still remembers how to perform those techniques. Suddenly, the system prompt notifies him. Got the Sohul school. It's re-added to his main techniques list. Seolwi understands that the system displays whatever he remembers. Next, the system shows him his tools window. Unlike his stats, nothing here has changed. Seolwi examines this new window type and wonders how to use it. He selects the Yoji-Do from the window, and the system asks if he wants to load this item. Seolwi confirms, and the map appears in his hand, surrounded by some tech particles. This ability excites him, as it seems very handy. He opens the map and inspects it, seeing a detailed layout of Mount Hwanga, the location Lord Sama mentioned. Afterward, he examines the other items in his tool inventory. The description of the medicinal herb indicates it is a common plant found almost everywhere and can boost health by 2. The red bean jelly is described as a snack made by boiling red beans, running them through a wooden sieve, and mixing them with honey and flour. Its effect is a health boost by 3. Seolwi's curiosity is piqued by the red bean jelly. He selects it, and just like the map, it materializes out of nowhere into his hands. He peels it and puts the long brown treat in his mouth. He's amazed by the taste of the red bean jelly. The system prompts, "You have recovered 1 health." His health increases from 119 to 120. Seolwi realizes that if he eats the entire red bean jelly, his health will increase by 3. However, he decides to put it back in his tool inventory. The system asks if he wants to store the item away, and Seolwi confirms. The item vanishes from his hand, just as before, with some shimmering tech particles appearing during the process. Seolwi clenches his hand into a fist with satisfaction, then stands with determination, and begins to set his plan into motion for this life. Later on, we see Seolwi dressed up and running towards the Heavenly Sun Archive. He heads straight to the 12th floor to meet Ganma, the 3rd disciple of Cheonma. Standing in front of the door, Seolwi greets Gonam and introduces himself as the lieutenant of the Flying Hand Company. He respectfully states that he has come for an audience. Hearing this, Ganma asks for Seolwi's identity again. Seolwi responds, "I am the lieutenant of a low-level unit in the Imperial Pavilion. My unit is not affiliated with any particular company, and we are thus known as the Flying Hand Company." Ganma, with a hint of hesitation, asks, "Is that so? And why do you want to see me?" Seolwi replies that he possesses information that might help Ganma realize his ambitions. After a moment of silence, Ganma invites him to come inside. Seolwi opens the door and steps in, finding Ganma standing with his side turned, hands clasped behind his back. Ganma, with a gentle smile that exudes a somewhat feminine charm, turns to Seolwi and says, "You have my attention. What is this information that could help me realize my ambitions?" Seolwi lets out a sigh, then reaches towards Ganma with his hand and presents him with the map he obtained from Lord Sama's room. Ganma looks at it and asks, "What is this?" Seolwi responds, "Take a look for yourself." Ganma opens the map and begins to inspect it. As he reads the content, his expression tightens, and he asks Seolwi, "Are you absolutely certain that this information is accurate?" His voice carries a serious tone. Seolwi swears on his life that the information is correct. Ganma then inquires, "What is your name?" Seolwi answers, "I am just a lowly lieutenant who wanted to reach out to you." Ganma asks, "Why did you want to reach out to me?" Seolwi pauses for a moment, shifts his gaze from the ground to Ganma, and with burning resolve in his eyes shouts, "I want to get strong like everyone else." Ganma is silent for a moment, then walks toward Seolwi. He rolls up the map with both hands, leans in with a devilish grin, and tells Seolwi, "If this information is accurate, I will give you what you want." 3 hours later, Seolwi is still inside the Heavenly Sun archive, pacing back and forth with anxiety. He is nervously biting his nails, his mind racing. Despite his uncertainty about the full hierarchy of the demon cult, he is certain of one thing. Lord Sama doesn't like Ganma and supports Salma, the first disciple. Seolwi notices Ganma's arrival and turns to face him. Ganma, looking straight at Seolwi, says, "Seolwi, right?" Seolwi answers, "Yes," still nervous and overthinking. He wonders, "What if I messed up? What should I do differently in my next life?" Suddenly, the system window appears, asking if Seolwi wants to create a save point. Seolwi looks at the window and ponders for a while. A new window appears, providing information. It's the 95th year according to the Heavenly Calendar, Chapter 2. It also indicates that Ganma is giving him 3 options. Seolwi saves the save point. Time starts to flow again, and Ganma begins to speak. "I will give you 3 choices." Time freezes, and the system window prompts, giving Seolwi the information. First option, become a foot soldier for Ganma, attend the martial arts academy, and return as Ganma's servant with a difficulty level of 2 stars. Second option, become Ganma's bodyguard, receive personal training lessons from Jongguan Nok, and work as a personal bodyguard with a difficulty level of 3 stars. Third option, become a secret assassin for Ganma, tasked with eliminating many powerful targets with a difficulty level of 5 stars. Seolwi doesn't know how to choose the best option, as each one will lead to completely different outcomes for which he has 0 experience. He looks at the difficulty level of 5 stars with an uncertain face. For better judgment, Seolwi goes through all the options, pros and cons. First option, become a foot soldier and train at the main academy of the demon cult. This training is overseen directly by the head of the cult. Each year, the academy turns 3 or 4 trainees into elite warriors from the 100 that entered. Seolwi thinks it will be really hard to survive in such a place, but it will most definitely give a huge boost to his martial arts and chi. Second option, become Ganma's bodyguard and be personally trained by Elder Jongguan Nok, the 94th ranking elder in the cult. Under Elder Jong, Seolwi's demonic martial arts will improve significantly. However, this elder has a nasty personality, so Seolwi might end up severely injured. Third option, become a secret assassin for Ganma, tasked with eliminating many powerful targets. This is by far the most deadly, as he won't receive any training. He will have to kill high-level martial artists. What if he is tasked to kill Lord Sama? He probably won't survive. Seolwi closes his eyes in frustration and chooses to become a foot soldier. The system prompt notifies him of his decision, and time starts to flow once again. Ganma says, "Very well." In Seolwi's mind, he thinks that his priority is to survive. As long as he gets some extra lives, he can turn any situation in his favor. Ganma tells him he will have to wait 6 days as the academy opens then. Ganma will inform the director, so in the meantime, Seolwi can wait in the underground storehouse. Seolwi bows down with respect and thanks him. Ganma turns and tells Seolwi not to mention it. Before leaving, he adds, "Look for a book named A Guide to Samsuan. You will probably learn some useful stuff from it." This shocks Seolwi, who once again bows with respect. Moments after Ganma leaves, we see Seolwi running downstairs excitedly, like a dog after a ball. Previously, due to his injured arm, he couldn't learn the entire book, the Joksu School and the Chogwek School. Now, he's rummaging through all the books to find the Guide to Samsuwan. Finally, he finds it, and the book glows in Seolwi's hand. As he expected, the system prompt appears, presenting the same options as the last time he held the book. But this time, all the options are available, except for the already learned Sohul School. He thinks now he can learn the Jwaksu School's martial art that the former deputy commander mastered, and the Chogwek School that Lord Gui-sama is from. He rejoices that now he can learn both of them. He decides to start with the Jwaksu School's martial arts. The system window appears, showing the skill he will be taught. Incendiary Field. Seolwi questions why there aren't more options, as the Sohul School had 3 different techniques: sword, foot, and hand. He sighs. I guess you only use hands in this skill. The system notifies him that he will be shown a video. A shadow forms in front of Seolwi, clasping its hands together as a gesture of respect. Seolwi laughs, seeing the shadow again, but suddenly his eyes widen as the shadow turns fiery red and its middle dantian shines like the sun. The shadow raises its hand forward and unleashes a blast. The force of the blast ruffles Seolwi's hair, leaving him astonished by the explosive power of this technique. Seolwi starts to laugh and praises the Waksu School, noting how it can cause significant damage. He then moves on to the next school. The system prompt displays the name of the technique: Explosive Field. This time, the shadow is red and wields a sword in front of it. Seeing the shadow, Seolwi remarks that this is the primary martial art style used by Gui-sama and is well known among the demon cult members. Seolwi could never have imagined learning such a powerful technique before. The red shadow performs the technique flawlessly. It leaps forward with the sword, and its powerful chi pierces through the wall, destroying it. The sheer power of this technique makes Seolwi jump in excitement. Seolwi decides to give it a shot and try to perform the technique. He draws his sword, determined to start his training. Seolwi trains relentlessly, pouring all his effort into mastering the technique. After a while, he sits down to rest, and the system prompt appears, indicating that he has successfully learned to imitate all the techniques. Despite this, Seolwi complains that even after learning the techniques, he can't match the shadow's prowess. He attributes this to his insufficient chi. Determined, Seolwi clenches his fists. He resolves to continue training. As the day to enter the academy arrives, Seolwi prepares himself. A man with a goat beard appears behind him, asking if he is Seolwi. Seolwi inquires about the man's identity. The man introduces himself as Geo-un and explains that Ganma has sent him to escort Seolwi to the academy. As Seolwi begins to say, "Nice to meet you," Geo-un extends a hand, offering Seolwi a chi pill. He describes the pill, saying that it will boost Seolwi's chi by the equivalent of 10 years' worth of training. Seolwi accepts the pill with both hands, and then questions Geo-un, "Why give me such a valuable item?" Geo-un, lightly laughing, replies, "Trust me, this is the least you'll need to survive in the academy." Upon hearing this, Seolwi quickly swallows the pill. The system window appears, notifying him that his chi has increased by 2,000 and his health by 85. He feels a surge of power coursing through his body, and his chi has now multiplied 11-fold. The system announces that Seolwi has acquired a passive skill called mind reading. The description explains that this skill allows him to see other people's status windows and also enhances his vision. Seolwi questions if this new skill is a result of his increased chi. He speculates that meeting certain requirements might grant him different skills. The system window then asks Seolwi if he wants to inspect Geo-un's status window. The status window reveals that Geo-un is one of Ganma's bodyguards with a normal physique. Suddenly, Seolwi tenses up as if he's seen a ghost. The status window issues a warning. Geo-un is 77% hostile toward him and is a secret spy of the first disciple. Later, we see the secret spy walking while Seolwi is marching behind him, his gaze fixed on the warning window. Seolwi reflects on how a spy managed to deceive Ganma. If this is true, it could provide him with a significant advantage with Ganma. Jo-eun then halts and points toward a building. There it is. You can walk the rest of the way on your own. I'll head back. As Jo-eun starts to walk away, Seolwi watches him leave. Suddenly, the system prompts Seolwi with 3 choices. Give me one more of those pills from Ganma. Is there something you want to tell me? And a facial expression to simply laugh. Seolwi ponders his options and decides to choose the second one. He asks, "Is there something you want to tell me?" Upon hearing this, Jo-eun's expression darkens, and he turns his face toward Seolwi, asking what that is supposed to mean. "I was just curious," Seolwi answers. Jo-eun asks again, "About what?" Seolwi replies, "The academy trains the best fighters in the land, and Ganma knows exactly what my abilities are like. The fact that Ganma gave me that chi-enhancing pill means I will have a hard time surviving in such a place." Seolwi looks directly into Jo-eun's eyes and continues, "Are you sure that I'm ready to go in there? Do you think a little chi boost is enough to keep me alive?" Jo-eun clears his throat and glances back at Seolwi. "Well, it definitely isn't going to be easy," he answers. Then, lifting his hand, he offers Seolwi a sword. The system indicates that this sword is called the Shadow Slicing Sword. It boosts health by 2, chi by 2, and speed by 2%. It also has a special feature that makes the user unusually happy. Seolwi, while holding the sword, unsheathes it halfway to inspect. The sword has a glowing blue aura, and Seolwi breaks into a broad smile. Jo-eun begins to speak. Only individuals chosen by the great leader of the Central Plain can enter this academy. You will be learning the finest martial arts tomes and techniques that the demon cult can offer. You should be grateful that Ganma even granted you this opportunity." Seolwi flinches upon hearing this. Jo-eun's face hardens. He greets his teeth and a deadly aura emanates from him as he continues, "Don't ever forget that." After this interaction, Seolwi stands in front of the grand gate of the martial arts academy. He holds his new sword in one hand and rests his other hand on his old weapon. As he begins to enter through the massive gate, he looks at his newly acquired sword and remarks, "This looks like a really good sword. I'd better put it in my toolbox, just in case the academy confiscates it or someone tries to steal it." He then stores the sword away, and it is added to his toolbox as a new item. Nervously, Seolwi slaps himself with both hands and says, "It's time to go." He then goes to meet the training supervisor, who is seated on a chair with his bald head resting on both hands. Seolwi stands nervously in front of him. We learn that this old man is one of the many supervisors overseeing all the tests at the academy. These supervisors are just below the lords of the pavilions and serve the great leaders of the demon cult, making them figures of immense authority and strength, and no one dares to disrespect them. The old man speaks. "Seolwi, correct?" Seolwi bows with respect and affirms. The old man then places 4 bamboo sticks on the table, saying, "Choose one." Each bamboo stick is marked with a different term: Shin, Eon, Seo, and Pan. Shin means body, Eon means speech, Seo means writing, and Pan means judgment. Seolwi speculates that each one likely represents a different type of test he will undergo. He puts his hand under his chin and starts to think carefully. He concludes that Shin, meaning body, probably indicates a physical test. Eon, meaning speech, is likely related to a verbal or speaking test. Seo, meaning writing, seems to refer to a written test. However, Seolwi is uncertain about Pan, meaning judgment. He guesses it might involve assessing his decision-making ability. The old man interrupts Seolwi, saying, "You'll eventually need to complete all of them." Upon receiving this information, Seolwi selects the first bamboo stick and reaches for it, but the old man simply tosses the stick back at him. The old man then explains the task. Seolwi must gather 6 more bamboo sticks, each marked with Shin, within 1 day. If he survives until this time tomorrow, he will have completed the test. Seolwi listens intently as the old man continues, instructing him to go through the door on the far right behind him. This will also be the door through which he will return. The old man adds that inside the room, there are many things like martial art tomes, treasures, and weapons. He advises Seolwi to look around carefully, as he might find something useful. Seolwi, glancing at the door, feels a bit hesitant. The old man then shouts, "Get going!" Seolwi dashes into the eerie room. As Seolwi leaves, the old man gives him one final glance with a frowning face. Seolwi, dashing through the corridors, contemplates the task ahead. He realizes that, like him, other martial artists are also taking this test. When the supervisor instructed him to gather 6 more bamboo sticks, it became clear that this meant he would have to kill others taking the exam and steal their bamboo sticks. As Seolwi reaches the end of the corridor, a bright light flashes before his eyes. Exiting the corridor, he finds himself in a vast grassland dotted with trees and tall buildings. Seolwi understands that the buildings likely contain valuable loot, so the more he explores, the better items he might find. He hides behind a rock, knowing that exploring could also expose his location. He must be cautious to secure good items. Surprised by the relative quiet of the place, Seolwi speculates that he might be the first to enter. His gaze falls on a tall building, and his desire to explore it intensifies. He decides to sprint quickly to avoid detection and dashes forward. Upon reaching the building, he slides carefully against the wall, taking cover and scanning for any enemies. Seolwi breathes a sigh of relief as he sees no enemies in sight. Seolwi's world crumbles, and his expression shifts as he hears the beep sound of the system window. He reads that an enemy has exploited his weakness, and the system is asking how he wants to respond. Fight, defend, or flee. Seolwi, unable to understand how he was caught off guard, focuses on the window panel in front of him. As the timer counts down, Seolwi grits his teeth in frustration. He selects the option to flee. As time resumes, Seolwi leaps high, leaving a bright trail behind him. He soars several stories up, but he is dismayed to the fact that his body is moving with no control of its own again like before. A flash of light appears behind him. Seolwi tries to look back, but before he can do anything, a slash across his back causes intense pain. Seolwi lands on the ground, bleeding from the wound he just sustained. The enemy reveals himself, remarking that Seolwi surprised him by noticing the attack. The status window displays the enemy's details. Name unknown, normal body, health at 680 out of 685, and chi at 470 out of 550. The enemy, with a repulsive grin, looks down at Seolwi. Seolwi's status window shows a decrease of 102 health points and 1030 chi points. Seolwi turns fully toward the ugly enemy, his wound clearly visible as he remains crouched. He then stands up, and they lock eyes. The enemy, grinning smugly, rests his sword on his shoulder with an air of arrogance, saying, "Let's get this over with." Seolwi responds, "Fine by me," and begins to unsheath his sword. Seolwi doesn't know the full extent of his opponent's strength, but he realizes that the enemy has significantly less chi than he does, which means he need not fear this clownish adversary. The arrogant bastard gestures with his finger, taunting Seolwi to come on. Seolwi lunges forward, holding his sword steady. His swift movement causes the clown to flinch, barely managing to defend against the sword strike. Seolwi explains that the so in Sohul school means cold, which is why white frost emanates from his mouth while using this technique. Trembling in fear, the clown questions why he can't move. The reason is that the frost also slows down the enemy's movements. In a flash, Seolwi appears behind the enemy, holding his sword straight in front of him. The enemy, slowed by the Sohul technique, can't comprehend what's happening. A second later, blood spurts from his torso. Seolwi's sword is covered with the enemy's blood as he stands in a cool pose, while in the background, the enemy's body continues to spurt blood. Breathing frost, Seolwi notes that he hasn't fully mastered the Sohul school martial art yet, but he has become stronger and faster than before. The dead body drops to the ground, and Seolwi, after eliminating his opponent, lets out a sigh of relief. He then checks his status, noticing the decrease in his health points and chi. Seolwi is a little skeptical about the effectiveness of the status window. He remarks that while it is useful to know how much damage he has taken, it can also make him overly conscious about how close he is to dying. potentially causing hesitation. He then squats to inspect the corpse, searching for the shin bamboo stick. Upon finding it, he rejoices, but he is interrupted by the system notification, which informs him that he has obtained a low-grade healing potion. This makes the wounded Seolwi even happier. In the middle of nowhere, we witness a small building compared to the ones from before, but it definitely has personality. Inside, the wounded Seolwi is treating his injury by covering it with a cloth to minimize blood loss. Sighing, he holds his wounded shoulder while his sword rests beside him. Seolwi is staring at his health points, which are slowly decreasing. This concerns him, as he knows that if he doesn't do something soon, he is doomed. However, he refuses to use the healing potion right now, wanting to save it in case he encounters a foe stronger than him. He knows he would regret using it if that were to happen. While holding his wounded shoulder, which is causing a lot of pain, he moans. The player remarks that he refuses to die here, that he refuses to die and go to the other world before at least taking his revenge by killing his enemies at least once. Staring into his toolbox, Seolwi notices a medicinal herb. He thinks it's probably fine to use it. After consuming the common herb, his body glows with a faint green color. Ding. The system notifies that his health has increased by 2 points. Seolwi chuckles while staring at his slightly improved wound, remarking, "So it was this easy to use it." Something catches his attention. He starts to hear noises, seemingly from 2 people clashing. Seolwi peeks through the door beside him and sees a man he recognizes as Cheoko. The tired man, with long white hair tied back, is trying to catch his breath. Cheoko kneels on the ground and starts looting the corpse of the bald man he just defeated. We are informed that the Great Imperial Pavilion has a total of 7 companies: Earth, Sun, Moon, Fire, Water, Wood, and Metal. Each company's name includes Black before it, for example, Black Fire Company. This guy named Cheoko is the leader of the Fire Company. Seolwi speculates that Cheoko is as strong as the leader of the Black Moon Company, Jokmyong, the man who always bullied Seolwi whenever he got the chance, or the better way to remember him is as the man who died without a chance to wipe himself. Seolwi understands that Cheoko is much stronger than him and decides that if he has to kill him, he should finish it in one blow. He further ponders about the Grand Ship technique, remembering how he killed Jokmyong in just one slash, but the player doesn't know how to activate that move. Cheoko picks up the armor his foe possessed, thinking it's pretty valuable. While Seolwi watches the man happily raising the armor above his head, the wounded player wants that armor as he is hurt and really needs better gear for survival. Suddenly, he is alerted. The system window presents him with 3 choices: attack, use martial arts, or use a tool from his toolbox. Seolwi starts to read all the options, and when there are about 3 seconds left, he makes a decision. The panel shows that he chose to attack and will return to 3 seconds ago and should act immediately. Seolwi thinks this is probably the safest option, but the 3 seconds ago message surprises him. He goes back in time by 3 seconds. At first, he can't comprehend it, but then he grins after grasping what just happened. With fast footwork, he readies his sword and heads toward his enemy. The poor Cheoko, occupied with putting the armor on, doesn't even notice the attack Seolwi is launching at him. Instinctively, Seolwi's sword penetrates the careless man from behind. Cheoko gushes out blood and dies, with his status window indicating that his health points have been reduced to 0. Seolwi, looking at the dead enemy, starts to rejoice at his easy victory. Then he pulls out his sword from the dead fool, and the body, with no support, falls to the ground. Seolwi, like a vulture, rummages through his belongings, first finding the bamboo sticks. Cheoko actually possessed 5 of them. After collecting all the loot, he puts everything inside his toolbox except for the bamboo sticks. He obtained 3 potions, 1 poison antidote, an armor called the Heavenly Silver Armor, and a fragrant moon dagger. Seolwi then explains that the reason he puts everything in his toolbox is simple. When he uses an item from the toolbox, it applies immediately. Demonstrating with a potion, his body glows green, indicating the effects of the potion he just used. his health points increase by 107 and become max. Unlike other people who have to manually drink the potion, he can use it, and it will take effect just as if he drank it, without putting himself in a vulnerable position while using items from the toolbox. Seolwi happily stretches his arms, feeling no pain as the potion heals his injury. Then he starts to stare at the window that shows the armor item in his toolbox, wondering if he can apply armor instantly too. Only one way to find out, he thinks. The armor is applied without any effort, and he awes in amazement, looking at the armor under his clothes. The player grins in joy, thinking that this toolbox is really handy. But his joy is short-lived as the system warns him of an enemy catching him in an awkward position. The system presents him with 3 choices: fight back, defend yourself, or run away. Seolwi is frustrated and blames himself for being careless. He got excited because of his new stuff and didn't pay attention to his surroundings. Looking at the 3 options, he dismisses the first one as he doesn't know who is ambushing him or how strong the attacker might be. He also dismisses the idea of running away, recalling how it ended badly last time. This leaves him with only one option: defend himself. The system warns him that he will be shown the enemy's position and should be careful to defend himself. The system changes his view to a third-person perspective from above, revealing everything in the surroundings. Seolwi sees a blonde man heading towards him, ready to kill, while Chioko's dead body lies in front of him. Turning to the enemy, Seolwi is instantly struck by a sword and repelled backward due to the shock of the attack. He stops, crouching on the ground with one hand on the floor, coughing up blood. His health has been reduced by 166 units, and his face looks pale from the blow. Among the dust, the silhouette of the attacker is seen. While looking at the enemy, Seolwi clarifies that he barely survived. If it hadn't been for the armor, he would have been a goner. The blonde man starts to walk toward Seolwi, remarking that Seolwi surprised him by fending off the attack and not dying, then realizing that Seolwi had protection gear. The man grins as the stats window shows information about him. Oma, commander of the Surakion Company at the Crimson Palace. Oma possesses 4,505 health points and just above 6,000 chi points. Seolwi, after seeing the status window, loses all hope, knowing that this guy is the strongest person he has fought against. I know Seolwi is capping here, as in the beginning, he fought the greatest warrior of the Manhwa sect. Both men lock eyes, one grinning like a predator, while the other, pale and wounded, resembles a prey. Seolwi thinks that this man's health and chi far exceeds his own. Even if Jokmyong and Chioko fought him together, they would probably lose. Yet something is peculiar. Despite his immense power, this formidable foe only grants 1 extra life. With a smirk, Oma mocks Seolwi, asking, "What are you looking at? You're as good as dead." Seolwi, ignoring him, mutters, "I really thought I did my best. This is really unfair." Oma, noticing Seolwi's mumbling, questions what he's saying. But Seolwi continues, lamenting that even with many lives, he always ends up short. Despite experiencing death a few times, he still can't survive. The blonde calls him insane. Hearing this, Seolwi places his hand on his sword, intending to unsheath it, and agrees, shouting, "I am actually crazy. I am out of my goddamn mind, you son of a respectful woman." Knowing he's likely to die here, Seolwi has nothing left to lose and wants to let out all his anger at this bastard. With a fierce determination, he launches himself toward Oma, intent on striking him. Oma, aware that his opponent is both weak and wounded, scoffs at the easy challenge. Seolwi slashes downward with all his might, but Oma blocks the attack with his long sword. Seolwi grits his teeth, shocked by the impending attack. A powerful aura blast. The force of the blast sends both combatants sprawling backward. The blonde, Oma, grits his teeth, sweating heavily. Seolwi, bewildered, glances at the status window above Oma's head, which indicates a significant decrease. 450 health points and 640 chi. Oma, panting and disoriented, appears unsure of what just transpired. Seeing this, Seolwi is encouraged. Despite only a brief clash of swords, he managed to inflict considerable damage on the enemy. This revelation gives him a glimmer of hope that victory might still be within reach. We are informed that there exists a type of martial arts known as the Sosu demonic arts. This technique utilizes extreme cold yin energy, so powerful that only elders can master it. Since it employs yin energy, women are generally better at using Sosu demonic arts than men. Nonetheless, many men in the demon cult seek to learn this technique due to its superiority, leading to various offshoots and branches. Seolwi speculates that perhaps the Sohul demonic arts is one of these branches. Beyond this theory, he can't think of another explanation for his frost breath and the way it slows his enemies. However, since Seolwi hasn't practiced yin energy and doesn't possess any, it remains unknown. The unknown blast was caused by Seolwi's technique and decreased his chi by 310 points. Seolwi understands that the attack dealt significant damage, but he himself isn't in good condition either. Oma rushes forward, eager to attack with his long sword. The battle continues as Seolwi swiftly evades the incoming slashes from his opponent. Though he can barely keep up, he manages to dodge incoming slashes or repel some attacks with his sword. Both combatants are trying their best to survive. Oma swings aside Seolwi's sword and rushes in while Seolwi is vulnerable, delivering a powerful kick. Seolwi, taking the blow, uses the momentum to gain some distance and catch his breath. The main character grins as his health decreases by 17, leaving him with only 19 points. The blonde, now assured of his advantage, smirks and arrogantly comments, "You managed to last for a while using some little tricks." Seolwi looks up with despair, realizing that he still isn't strong enough to defeat the foe. It is at this moment that the system panel appears, noting that Seolwi's Sohul school technique has leveled up from imitation to beginner level. Seolwi, not completely understanding the meaning of his technique's upgrade, notes that neither his strength nor health has increased. Perhaps this indicates an improvement in his skills. Glaring like a beast, he leaps forward without fear of death. Oma, taken aback, tries to jump back to evade, but is injured on the shoulder and arm while blood is spurting from his wounds. Seolwi is surprised, realizing that he has become faster than moments ago. Seizing the opportunity, he glares at the enemy and rushes forward to attack again. The roles are reversed now. The blonde is in fear while Seolwi roars like a lion. Seolwi and Oma's swords clash. After the sword touches, Seolwi slides out of attack range. Gasping for air, Oma questions how Seolwi managed to do that. Suddenly, a sword begins to crack, surprising its owner. At the same moment, the system window appears, notifying of a golden opportunity and asking how Seolwi wants to respond. He has 3 options and 10 seconds to choose from: attack, martial art, or a tool. Understanding that a basic sword attack won't be enough to kill this tanky opponent, Seolwi decides to use a martial art skill. The system again queries 3 choices of 3 techniques, with only 1 technique available. Without hesitation, Seolwi moves forward, placing his palm on the enemy's chest and using the incendiary field, the only available option he had. Fiery aura leaks from Seolwi's palm, causing immense pain to the enemy, while Seolwi holds his sword in the other hand and his eyes glow with flames. A loud boom echoes from the technique as the enemy is engulfed in flames, smoke billowing from his mouth. The enemy's health drops to 0. Seolwi crouches, holding his hand as the status window indicates that he has 9 health points and 28 chi points. The wounded lion pants heavily, barely having survived such a fierce battle, and thanks the system for his victory. Trembling and not wanting to attract more enemies, he decides it's best to leave this building. Seolwi finds a blue lotus pill, a physical enhancing pill, and a tome of invincibility among his spoils of victory. We see a serene scene of the mountains hiding the sun, with the sky bathed in a beautiful blend of yellow and red hues. Inside the trunk of a tree, Seolwi is sitting, having hidden and rested in the forest after the battle, thanking the arrival of morning. He sighs in frustration as he had attempted to place the extra bamboo sticks he obtained into his toolbox, but it was unsuccessful, probably because it would be like cheating in his next life. Seolwi then inquires more information from the system about the 2 pills he found the previous day. The description reveals that 1 pill increases the limitation of his chi, while the other enhances his health limitation. Although he considers using these valuable pills, he hesitates, realizing he needs a more concrete plan since his stats would return to normal if he dies, rendering the pills almost useless. Furthermore, Seolwi notes that, unlike pills, special items such as the Tome of Invincibility will remain with him even after death. He decides to use the tome, and the system notifies him, "You have learned cloaking from the Invincible Tome." The player takes a relaxing breath, emanating a blue aura around him. As soon as he mentally decides to learn the skill from the newly acquired called the Invincible Tome, everything is set in motion. In a blink, he had already memorized the skill, as if he had known it for many years. Seolwi understands that he can take advantage of the system by gathering demonic skills and techniques from tomes and making the most of the golden opportunities presented by the system. Seolwi stands up, leaves the tree trunk, and walks through the grassland and trees. He notes that every time he interacts with the blue window, he becomes more certain that he can fully leverage the opportunities that come his way in the form of a challenge. He realizes that mastering the system in the most optimized way to make decisions could help him reach the levels he dreamed of as a child. Reaching the exit gate, Seolwi is distracted by a bright light flashing before his eyes. Sensing something unusual, he reaches out to grab it. A window panel appears, asking if he wants to create a save point at this time. With 2 save points space remaining, he closes his eyes and decides not to save. Understanding that there are many valuable treasures in this place that he can pursue in future lives, Seolwi glances back at the academy with determined eyes and remarks, "I will be back." Subscribe so you will know when the next part is dropping.